Welcome to Preparing for AI, the AI podcast for everybody. The podcast that explores the human and social impact of AI, exploring where AI intersects with economics, healthcare, religion, politics, and everything in between. I still feel you beneath my skin. I'm tempted to throw my sensors in because it's easier to fly than to face another night in southern sun. Welcome to Preparing for AI with me, Paul Oakenfold.
And me, Steve Wozniak, the was.
Was not was, some might say.
Yeah, is the question.
Is the question. Right, so Preparing for AI, this is the deep dive episode, and we're going to be talking about coding today, and it's far more interesting than you think, because we're going to not only teach you how to code and teach you how to make your own websites, but we're going to tell you about how coding is important to you, how it matters to you, how it's going to influence your life, and why you need to know all about it, even though you don't need to be a coder. Is that right?
That sounds spot on.
Summary of the episode?
Yeah, unless you're already a coder, in which case...
don't listen to this episode.
Well, no, you might find it interesting.
Okay. Well, listen to it whoever you are.
Yeah.
And get in the... and subscribe and all the usual stuff, and...
Yeah, and use my...
And use that subscription link.
Yeah, that Abacus AI chat LLM studio thing.
Yeah, and follow my health blog in China, where you can also buy some supplements and
listen to that in Chinese.
Send me a 5 RMB gift. It's called Longer by Huatang if you want to search for it on WeChat.
Shameless plug.
Anyway, let's get back to the AI episode.
About coding.
About coding. So I'm just going to hand over to you to start. Well, I'm interviewing you, but I'm just going to tell you to introduce the episode.
All right, I'm a developer, if you didn't know that already. I'm a developer. I'd say I'm a kind of fairly casual developer in that I do lots of developer-y stuff, but I've never been employed just as a developer, I suppose. So I'm not knee deep in Python or any of these other languages.
So you might need to just explain being knee deep in Python. So for anyone not listening, Python is a kind of
programming language.
Yeah,
Python's
it's very worth expressing that.
Yeah, I'm not knee deep in Python or JavaScript
or any other kind of snake or
any snake or
Indonesian island.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But I did learn to code. I am really interested in it. I think the thing with me is that I'm more interested in the outcome than I am interested in sitting down and writing lines and lines of code, which is why vibe coding for me was pretty cool, because I could have a basic understanding.
You're going to have to explain what coding is.
So vibe coding is what we're about to talk about, which is effectively coding with an AI assistant. So they call it vibe coding because in the most extreme example of it, you literally just effectively ask an AI to write all the code for you. You don't review it at all, and you just trust me, bro, that it's going to work. And then you get to see the results. And to be honest, with the latest AIs over the last... I've been vibe coding, I suppose, for about... probably about 6 months, maybe about 9 months now. And with the latest AI models, it works pretty bloody well. You need to... there's a bit of a learning curve if you've never coded before, if you've never written code before at all, if you've got no prior knowledge, no prior experience whatsoever, then it's definitely going to be a bit of a learning curve. That being said, you can just ask AI to explain everything to you like you're 5 years old or 6 years old or have no coding experience and an adult, and it will sort you out. So that's why I'm pretty excited to talk about it in this episode, because I think that if you've ever been like, oh, I really fancy having a crack at that, I really fancy having a go at some coding, or I'd like to make my own website, I'd like to do some of these things, but I just don't have the skills, I don't have any of the knowledge, I don't have any of the background, then I genuinely think even if you've got zero coding knowledge, I think with a little bit of effort, and you will have to learn some stuff, you will have to read some things, you will have to work with an AI, for example, on sort of understanding what you're doing. But if you do that, and it's not that much effort, then you can probably actually create something that you've always fancied having a crack at, but you don't have the skills to actually create yourself.
Should we start off by just giving a kind of background? Because I think in terms of like the format for these kind of deep dives is, I mean, it's a bit of a, we can kind of choose how we do it, but like to give a bit of background on coding, like it would be, I guess.
What is coding?
No, I was not going to say to go back that far, but like to say like, what is AI? Like, what is the kind of state of play in terms of what AI is now doing and can now do in terms of coding? Like what in the kind of real world is AI now? Like, is it doing all coding? Is it helping people code? Is it, it's doing some of it and not all of it? Like what's kind of the current state of play with AI and coding? Because I think it's fair to say that this is the place where AI is the most advanced in terms of like, in terms of any industry or job, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, AI has actually won. So, this isn't specifically coding, but in terms of, I think we talked about it on a previous episode where ChatGPT and Claude, maybe, I can't remember, they entered them into a maths Olympiad, like one of the hardest maths tests in the world that people do, and they got gold awards. And there's been similar examples with coding. So like I think the best version of ChatGPT was something like, it was in the top 100 in terms of like coders in the world, like in certain benchmarks. So they are really advanced. I think the nuance comes within, you have to explain to the AI what you want to build. And within that context, it's going to like give you an output, and it's going to depend on your ability to prompt it and all the rest of it. So, but in terms of what the actual capabilities are, they're capable of being doing really sophisticated, accomplished stuff.
In like the workplace, is most coding now done by AIs, or is it still done by people? Is it 50-50? Like what's the current split?
So I don't know about all workplaces. I know that tech-heavy companies are, like Facebook, for example, came out, and this was like 3 to 6 months ago. Facebook came out and said that they were literally using AI to write 30% of their code, I think.
So only 30%? Because for me, that's quite shocking. Like I would expect... I mean, I'm saying I would expect... I know it's about that, but what I'm saying is like, if I didn't know... I would expect that now is like, well, AI is probably doing all the coding, or it's like doing most of it, and it's like the people are just doing a bit. So I would think it would be like 70-80%.
So I think...
If I didn't know it was 30%, because I kind of...
Well, they said this a few months ago, so I think now we're in a situation where I would be... So I don't know the exact numbers, and they change all the time, but most developers have used or are using AI to write code.
And the holdouts are like... the kind of people who refuse to use a
calculator.
Yeah, that's a really good example. I was just saying, refuse to use a knife and fork.
Refuse, yeah, what they just eat with their hands. Yeah, they're
down with technology. I refuse to be take away my right to eat with a hand.
Yeah. They're those kinds of peoples. Though they're those kind of peoples. Yeah. So. Yeah, I think most. I would be surprised if there are any developers who haven't used AI at some point for writing code and have published code. So like it's ubiquitous in the world of coding right now. So you've got Copilot, you've got GitHub Copilot, which is the version that's used for coding, which is Microsoft. You've got versions of AI coding IDEs, which is an integrated developer environment, which is how you actually, it's basically the bit of software you use to write code. So there are they pretty much all have a AI plugin right now. You've got AI specific coding developer environments, which the main ones are Cursor and Windsurf, but there are probably about 20 now, because they keep popping up every day. And effectively what these do is they give you a developer environment. Like think of a developer environment as like if Microsoft Word is an app for doing word processing, it's an app for writing text and formatting text. An integrated developer environment is the equivalent of Microsoft Word, but it's what you use if you're a developer writing code. So, and the latest ones, the ones which have AI integration, effectively they have a chat box on the right hand side, and you, instead of writing code yourself, although you can write code yourself, most of the time you basically just ask the AI to write the code, and you've got a folder open which has got your project in it, and the AI can just create files, amend files, update files, even run terminal commands, which is how you effectively test your code and run your servers and things like that.
Yeah. So if I'm my dad's friend Martin, who always beats me at golf, or I'm Jonathan, who hates conspiracy theories, or Trevor Herndon from Bournemouth, why should I give a shit about this?
I mean, you shouldn't necessarily, but like if you've ever, I think it's getting to the point now where if you're even slightly interested in, for example, having a bit of a creative moment where you're like, oh, I wonder if I could create a website for my dog, or for any purpose. It could be for your family, could be something where you've been like, oh, everyone's been on the hype train creating websites, and like I've never had a go, and this is a way that like you could just do that.
But most people don't want to do that.
Most people don't want to do that.
So, but isn't there an argument here? Because I'm not trying to plug the episode and for people to listen, but I think part of the reason why I think we wanted to do this episode, or what I thought this episode was really important, was if you're not going to be using coding, but the world that you live in, right? If you're going to live for longer than 2 or 3 years, like the world that you live in is going to be massively affected by coding. So I think you still need to understand like how it works and what it does, because I think it's fundamental to understanding like the AI things and tools and apps and agents that will become part of your life. So like, does it, I guess in a sense, like, does it matter to people whether it's AI that's doing the coding or a person, or does it only matter to the people who are doing the coding? So is it actually like, well, there's coding happening that's creating all of the digital products and platforms and applications, whether that's from your TV, your smartwatch, the car, the driverless vehicle you're going in. Someone's coding it. Well, I don't care whether it's a person or an AI. It's just someone doing it. Or does it matter? Like, is there a fundamental reason why people should care about the fact that it's an AI that's doing it, other than, there's like not necessarily a trust in every individual, but like there is a difference in the trust. Is there something there that people need to be aware of?
I don't think so. The only thing I would say on that, and this is something that I predicted in the past, but so even if you don't want to go away and actually have a go at doing some coding yourself, so to speak. And when I say coding, if we're talking about vibe coding, it's literally like describing what you want to an AI and then it just goes and does it for you, which is pretty amazing in itself. Like I always find this amazing, but then again, I'm a techie person, and so I'm interested in that kind of stuff. But even if you're not, like I made a prediction a few years ago or a year ago that in the not too distant future, the concept of an app on your phone, the concept of having like different individual apps that do different things, especially where they're like quite basic things, I think at some point it's almost going to go away, because it's called
WeChat.
Well, it's called WeChat in China, yeah.
Which is what Elon Musk has said he wants to create, like WeChat. So like everything in one place, which makes sense, right?
But even within WeChat, like there are different bits of WeChat that do different things. I can envision a future where once these AI agents get quick enough, because that's probably the bottleneck right now, is they're not quick enough. But once they get quick enough, you'll almost be able to just say to your phone, I want to be able to do this, and it can just build what you want on the fly. And so I think in that sense, there's a lot of ifs. If that reality comes true, where you can almost have the Omni app, which can just build whatever you want on the fly.
Coding matters to people at that point, because it empowers them to tailor whatever they want.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I can see that being a thing. Like we're probably getting a bit of ahead of ourselves in terms of like A, that hasn't happened yet, and it's hypothetical, and B, it's probably a couple of years away still. But if that does happen, then to be honest, I think that's what I love about it. It's like that idea that like you can have an idea and you could bring it to life through your imagination. Like you can be like, well, and that's a bit like, I mean, it's like the same for use of video, like VO3 and AI that can create video and pictures and even text. Like it's the same concept, but you can get it to create a game or some idea that you've had in your head. It can just create it, because that's what coding is for, right? It's for creating programs and games and turning ideas into reality. Like in that sense, like so I think that's what's kind of exciting about it.
Okay, so one thing I wanted to ask you was whether, so I'm thinking from the point of view of people listening here is like, are we still at the point where if you want to do coding, even if it's kind of vibe coding, you still need to find something where, you put a bit of, you give an instruction and code goes away and writes a bit of code and you add a bit more to it, and you need to have some degree of understanding of how code works. You don't necessarily need to be able to write code, but you need to be able to understand and understand how, whatever the Anaconda or whatever the kind of application that you're going to use, the platform that you're going to use. Or are we at the point where people can just basically download an app on their phone and just say to it, I want to make a website that is for selling antiviral nasal sprays. Like my antiviral, I'm looking at one on a shelf. That's why I said it. My antiviral nasal spray is called Immune Boost. Make me a website, and it just does it. And then the website's there, and then it's like I just pay some money and it just exists.
So I think the best example of this, and this is probably the most fun one that people can have a play with. So some of the like there are definitely vibe coding platforms that are more and less involved. So if you want to do serious coding, you can use things like Windsurf and Cursor, which I think I've mentioned before on the podcast. And there are loads of other examples. Now that's going to require you to install a bit of software and then understand how it works, create rules and create, a whole bunch of like a bit of a framework around it, probably pay for it. And they're quite involved. You're going to be like building apps on your desktop and testing them and building them on your desktop. That's probably like the more developer heavy end of things. But then you've got stuff like, and so the example I've got here is Google AI Studio, which if you search Google AI Studio, one of the first things it comes up with on the home screen, it literally says Vibe Code Gen AI enabled apps in build. And so I've had a go with this. And some of the examples of stuff that I've built. So this is like literally where you give it a text prompt and it will build you an app using AI. And usually they'll integrate AI into them as well. So some of the examples on here are like Nano Banana powered app. So app to allow users to add objects, remove backgrounds and change a photo style by typing. So that's a photo app using Nano Banana, which is one of Google's photo apps. AI image apps, creating conversational voice apps, so using the Gemini Live API to give your app a voice and make your own conversational experience. Now I've created a few on this site, and one of them that I created was actually, I created a Zork clone, I think, which was a text adventure game from the Spectrum.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So I created a Zork clone.
Right. I mean, that's right in the wheelhouse of our listeners, right?
Yeah. So I got it to create a Zork clone, but so basically it was a text adventure game in the style of Zork with a bit of that story. But the cool thing was the story was generated by Gen AI, and it would generate like an image a lot to go alongside each step of the game. And I literally gave it like one text prompt and it gave me a text adventure game. It was pretty cool. You can do a whole bunch of stuff with this. So I think if you're not a developer and you wanted to have a crack at this, then something like Google AI Studio would be really good. There's another one. It's Matey Boy, isn't it? It's Steve Bartlett again.
Are we promoting him?
I don't know if we want to promote him.
I like him. I like him. It's just I don't like how he promotes everything. I don't like how he's a slave to all of his products, but I do like him.
I'm gonna find his vibe.
Like
coding
generally,
platform.
I am a fan of his. With caveats, I guess would be my answer, and also like his Huel product. I found out, as I told you earlier, his Huel whey protein product is full of lead. So yeah,
which is
he might prosecute me for this, but
pretty scary.
It was in a report in the US where they investigated many plant-based whey protein products, and they all found to contain lead, and the one with the most lead was from Huel. So
yeah,
sorry, Steve Bartlett, because I like you, but I don't like a lot of the products you promote.
Yeah, Replit was the one that I was thinking.
Yeah,
of.
Replit.
So,
Replit is one you recommended to me, actually.
So I haven't even
There's
tried
a moron,
Replit.
Basically.
Yeah, that's exactly what I said. I
mean, me being a moron, not Stephen Bartlett.
But Replit, I think he's invested in it, isn't he, or something?
Is he? Well, he's invested in everything.
Yeah, he's invested in everything.
You can assume that if something exists, Stephen Bartlett's probably invested in it.
He's involved. But yeah, this is a no-code app creator that's online, so I don't know if there's a free tier. I mean, I'm just clicking on it now. I haven't used it because I am a proper developer, so I've kind of like been doing the more serious stuff. But if you try Replit, it's basically a completely online no-code, like vibe coding solution where you can just write a prompt and it'll I think it generates and hosts whatever you're trying to describe. So it might be an even better option in that regard. There are a ton of solutions in
so
this
let me just ask you, like, okay, so I want to make a website.
I want to make a website.
I've got this idea, right? I've got this idea that I want to create tailored nutrition products for children, right? Which sounds like the worst idea, right? I mean, but also say like I wouldn't create any tailored thing for children because it's just too dodgy. But I want to create this tailored nutrition product for children, and I want to produce it and sell it. Like, okay, Replit and any coding websites can't help me to produce a physical product. But let's say I can get hold of this product and then stick it in a tin and put a label on it.
Yeah.
What do I need to do with Replit? Do I need to just tell it I want to do this and it will just do everything? Or do I need to start, do I need to kind of like prompt it at the sort of stages at which I need to intervene in the process? Like how much can it just do this? And if it can do it all itself, like, is the output going to be decent, or is the output just like, because I guess the thing here is like, okay, if I'm making this thing with an app that I just give it a text prompt and it just creates it, and other people have got skill in coding, aren't they just going to make much better things than me?
I don't know. It depends so it depends whether you're doing it because you want to have a bit of fun and because you want to be a bit creative, or you want to create an actual business idea.
You want to make money. I want money.
So, well, I mean, if you want to make money, then you need to have a business plan, and then you need to have you need to have a bit of a moat around it, right? So if someone hasn't already created the thing that you're trying to create, then that's going to determine whether you can make money off something, not whether you've got a nice website or not, probably. So like in terms of that, if you've got but Matt makes a good point. Like if you've got an idea that you think you do have a bit of a moat around, but you've never been able to create it because you don't have the skills, then some of these things might actually be a really good solution. Like Matt asked how hard is it? I've just typed it into Replit, and at the moment it's taken me through the planning stage. It came up with a couple of questions. So I give it the prompt. I want to make a tailored nutrition product for children. I want to produce it and sell it. It's come up with a bunch of questions. So what type of digital tool are you looking for? This is using Replit, like I say. An e-commerce website, a web application, something else, marketing, like a product information and marketing website. What's the core functionality you need? Online ordering and payment processing, personalized nutrition plan generator, product catalog and information display, customer accounts track orders. This is how they work, right? So it's designed to like help you go through a planning stage and then build the website. And it will just build it for you. So you answer a few questions, it will guide you through the process, and then it will build something. And maybe it won't be a 100% finished product, but it's probably going to surprise you, and it's probably going to be pretty cool.
I don't disagree.
Yeah.
I don't know enough. I mean,
we can build it later. We'll put a link in the podcast.
I mean, I guess like the thing that we probably need to make clear to people though is like you create it on here, but like when you create it, then it doesn't exist as a website, right? You've created the code, but it doesn't exist as a website. So someone hasn't built it and it's like, great, now my website exists. You've still got to host a website. You've still got to...
Maybe, but with Replit, you can... I think it does all that for you.
So you can do that?
Yeah.
Okay. That's pretty amazing because that really does open it out to anybody.
Yeah. So
like
it's a bit like Shopify, where like Shopify is a very similar thing where you can build a website on the Shopify platform. The difference
doesn't Stephen Bartlett promote Shopify?
Probably,
he does.
Yeah,
in fact, I'm asking. He 100% he promotes Shopify.
He loves it.
They've enabled his business.
It got Huel on there. Yeah, he's shopping Huel on Shopify. But yeah, like so, Shopify is a sort of similar example where you can actually build a no-code website on Shopify now, and they probably have an AI builder actually. I guess the difference is in this case you're a bit freer to kind of build whatever you want, as opposed to something that's a Shopify shop, so to speak. I don't know, like if people are even remotely interested in this stuff, I recommend having a bit of a play with it, because you'll probably be like, oh wow, I can actually create something half decent very easily. And the thing is, there's so many websites online, like what the design, the sort of design principles and the templates are already all out there. So most of the time you're going to be building something that, yeah, okay, it's going to look fairly similar to a lot of the stuff that's already out there. But if you've got a unique idea, then that's what's worth money, right? The web just becomes the web's just a platform for flogging it, essentially.
I don't know. I mean, like if that's true, that is where this. So you know the pro AI argument, right? The really kind of pro AI argument, which is about how it's going to enable all of this, ability for it is sort of democratization and allows everybody to be creative and anyone can do this, and I think a lot of it's sort of bullshit. But to some degree, like this is saying, well, if you've got the motivation and like just enough, what's the word, gumption to like get off your ass and actually spend a bit of time doing it, actually, like it's sort of true. Like this is allowing you to do that stuff. Like it's not that simple. And of course, if everyone can do it, you're competing in a bigger market, right? But if you have a brilliant idea, you can do it now. And you couldn't do that before. Like you probably to scale it up is a different matter, right? You still need investment to scale it up. There's a difference there, but you can still create something. So I think this is really powerful, actually.
Yeah, totally. I've never used Replit, but I'm getting it to build your website now.
And we should say, like, we're doing on this podcast, which we hadn't planned. We're doing this.
It's called it Kid Nutri Tailor.
Yeah,
like tailor as in like someone who sorts your clothes out.
If anyone listening to the podcast steals this idea and monetizes it, I will come after you. I will sue you, and I'll send Sam Altman to gobble you up in his lizard. No, I'm not. I think Stephen Bartlett owns us.
Oh yeah.
I think he owns everything. He owns all of these businesses. So, but like I say, I like Stephen Bartlett, even though he pisses me off. I hate Sam Altman. It's not just pissing me off. I believe he's the devil incarnate. So there is a difference for me. Stephen Bartlett, if you're listening,
we'd love to
give us some subscribers. Yeah, interview us. Yeah, I'm not sure what we'll add to your podcast, but there we go. Insight into how much lead is in your Huel products.
Absolutely.
We digress.
Yeah, what were we talking about?
Well, I was asking you about the difference between the sort of tools that allow you to complete, like just basically put in a text prompt and you have zero, background, and the tools that still require you not to understand how to write code, but to be able to intervene in the process a little bit. So are they still better? I think
the stuff that I do, so ultimately they're better.
What you do is definitely not, like you just say you don't use Replit. You wouldn't normally just put in a prompt and leave it to work, right? You would expect to have some level of control over the coding process.
Yeah, like I'm normally reviewing it. I'm keeping an eye on it. Like, and obviously to review it, you have to have the skill to review it. So, I use personally. I use Windsurf, and I'm having quite in-depth conversations with it. I've got my own process where I've developed my own set of rules that I've given to Windsurf, and Windsurf has a mechanism where you can put rules into it, which give it it's like your own set of guardrails around how it's going to behave, when it's going to come to you, when it's going to ask you questions, as opposed to just going off and building.
Can you
stuff.
just give it, like, when you say it's going to ask you questions, like, can you give us like, what would a question look like? Would it literally be like, hello Jimmy, can you help with this? Or is it like, what's the question look like?
Well, so I think this is quite a common thing in prompt engineering. So it's not just in these kind of coding IDEs, coding examples. So a good example of a of a prompt, a system prompt you might want to use if you're asking, let's say you put a system prompt into a custom GPT that's going to help you work on business plans. So one of the things you might want to say to it is, if the user comes to you with a very like fuzzy business plan, like the one we just came up with, I want to create a nutrition project for kids. Instead of just going off and building it, ask clarifying questions first. So like ask what platform do you want to build it on? What country would you like to market it in? What ages of children? So
it's very much like a large language model. If you're brainstorming with a large language model, a business idea, like frontier models will do the same thing as that, and will ask you like to give more information.
Yeah, exactly. But you can, so within my rules within Windsurf, I've got a very specific set of rules which say, I mean, it's getting into a lot of detail, but for example, I will say to it, like, always stick to, for example, I always create something called a product requirements document and a knowledge file and a to-do list. And part of my rule says, whenever you're doing anything, always refer to those files first, because those files contain all the essential information about the project. And one of the things that those files contain is, here's the technology stack that we're going to be working with. So it might be like, whenever you develop anything, you're working with a tech stack. So that'll be like a front end, back end, and API. And then it could be other stuff, but like it's a technology stack that's quite specific to your project. Now, with that, you've made a choice. You've said, I'm going to work with React and with Svelte and with Superbase database software, or whatever stack you've chosen. Now, one of the rules that I have is like, do not go off and just import additional technology unless we've agreed it beforehand, because one of the things that, I mean, this is something from a few months ago, but one of the things these AIs had a tendency to do was just come up with a workaround. Basically, if they couldn't figure out how to solve the problem that you'd given them in code using the technology in your stack, they would just go off and import some additional, some other framework or something and then start using that instead. So it's effectively your rules are a load of specifics that keep the AI on rails according to what you want it to do.
I'm thinking at this point, like, we might have lost some people.
Yeah,
in terms of use. I mean, I think maybe we pull it back to, for most people listening, and you listen to that and like, I don't know what you're talking about, is, okay, well, you don't need to think about that, because what we're trying to say to you here is, like, you use something like Replit, where you don't have to worry about this. You just type stuff in. But for people who have a bit more of a fundamental level of knowledge, we're explaining the tools where you have some level of control. It's not necessarily that they're better, but it's like, if you think about like video creation, if you type in a text prompt, say, make me a picture of a dragon drinking soup, and in your head you've got this like the dragon from Game of Thrones, but in its view you've got a traditional Chinese dragon and it's drinking a consomme soup, and you think it's drinking chicken soup. It's like
consomme.
Yeah, it's like what you imagine is very different from the output. I think the concern for me about like where you're just putting in a text prompt and you're just leaving it to go away with stuff is, like the interpretation is not going to turn out how you want it exactly. So you're going to have to accept that. Whereas when you have some control over it, that allows you to, kind of, it's like a funnel, isn't it? It's like you're getting it down to more and more closer to your product and more closer to your product. So it is much better. But that's not to say that you can't do this without. And frankly, like a year ago, you had to understand code to do this. So this is the difference, is like, this is something that no one who didn't, like people who didn't know code a year ago there's no way you could do this. You'd have to pay someone to do it for you. Now you can do it yourself. Like anyone listening to this, we're just watching this working in the background. Anyone listening to this podcast could go to Replit and could type stuff in, and with a little bit of help and maybe, a few tries, because it's maybe not going to work the first time, could create something here.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, totally. I think one of the really useful takeaways for me of all this stuff with coding as well is what I was talking about before, where it's actually developing your skills at prompting an AI. So it might be even an interesting experiment just in that respect. Like Matt was saying, like getting down to the specifics of what you actually want an AI to do is the same set of skills that you have to have when you're doing AI coding as well. But anyway, there's some really cool tools out there that are available right now. I think Google AI Studio and Replit are good places to start. I actually would say out of the two of them, for me, Google AI Studio is the one to have a crack at, because you can...
Can I just log into that as someone who knows nothing at all?
Yeah.
And I don't, the page opens, and I'm like, right, what do I do now?
Yeah.
Will I be faced with that, or will it be clear to me what I need to start doing on the kind of home page of
Google AI Studio?
Yeah.
Yeah, if you go to Google AI Studio and just go to, on the home page, I think it says Vibe Code Gen AI enabled apps in build. You can click on that, and then it's got examples.
Do I need a subscription? Do I need to have a Gemini premium account to do this, or can anyone do it?
It's free. Totally free. We can have a go in a bit at creating a text adventure of your liking.
The My Nutrition for Kids app.
Yeah. Definitely.
The next question I had for you, I wanted to sort of pull this back, and I think you talked earlier in the episode about like the original purpose of the podcast. Preparing for AI was all about getting ready for AI, and particularly in terms of like the workforce and how it would affect people's jobs. So I think a lot of people listening to the podcast, if they are, below the age of sort of 60 or maybe late 50s, their real concern in the short term is like, okay, what am I going to do with my work, like my career? How do I work in the future? Like, regardless of how quickly we get to sort of AGI, and regardless of how quickly, AI sort of takes over jobs, presuming that I'm going to have a job of some kind, am I going to need to code? Do I need to understand coding for my work, or is this just something for me to do in my spare time?
So I think the application, I don't think you're going to need to learn to code. But I think what we're going to see is Agentic AI, which we've talked about before on the podcast. So this is AI that can do complete actions for you in the world. How what sits behind that is like, how do you think about processes? How do you think about, how does an AI work when you like ask it to check my emails once a day for any emails from Matt, and when you see an email from Matt, to put it in the bin, that's the kind of things that you're going to have to get used to interacting with AI agents to basically improve your efficiency at work. I think that's going to be a real thing in the very near future. You can already do this kind of stuff. At the moment, you can't do it with natural language. Like, you have to sort of dig around in some of the more advanced features, but it's going to be a real feature very, very soon. Yeah, you're going to have AIs that can schedule meetings, agentic AIs that can schedule meetings for you, that can interact with your colleagues, like on Teams or on email or on chat, all this kind of stuff. That's going to be a real thing in the not too distant future. And so you're not going to necessarily specifically need to be coding, but you're going to need to be thinking in that. You're going to need to be thinking in that kind of process-oriented way, I guess, in terms of how you work with AIs and work alongside AIs, how you instruct them, how you talk to them, how you, for want of a better word, how you program them.
So but essentially, there we're talking about prompting. Then,
It's
so what we're saying
prompting,
here is
yeah.
like the way that you'll work with, for most people, the way that you'll work with coding is your prompt,
Yeah,
and the coding will happen,
yeah,
and you'll need to know how to prompt. But
Yeah.
to be able to do that properly, because what you talked about in your example is how, you need to spot errors in code. And I talked sometime last year, like I was doing a master's last year, and I had to do a module that was on data analytics, right? And use that. I was using RStudio, which is a kind of analytics code. And by the end of that module, which is only 2 months, like using it, I was able to look at code and be able to be like, oh, I can spot the error in there. Like
Yeah,
I was quite often,
yeah.
and then there was only a couple of months, and I was using it like, I don't know, 20 hours a week. So what's that? Over 2 months, 20, 60.
quite a lot of hours.
It's quite a lot of hours, isn't it? When I counted up, that's a lot of hours. But I wasn't spending the whole time using RStudio. But my point is, like, over a couple of months of pretty heavy use, I was able to view code. Do people need to do that? Or do they just need to then focus on like how to prompt something to do code? Because it still seems to me that like if you don't know how to spot the errors, you're relying on and trusting the AI to be doing it right, or is that okay? Like I guess it's not like a high risk. It's not like we're building a nuclear launch
system.
key. System.
I haven't got
That's the
to that
word.
yet. I was going to do that next week.
Yeah. On Replit.
On Replit, yeah.
Build me a bioweapon.
So again, like I think it's a bit tricky. Like if you're remotely interested in this stuff, like honestly, I when I'm vibe coding, which I do quite a lot now, I pretty much just chuck the errors back into the AI.
Well, I've got to say, when I think of vibe coding, I imagine you're just someone's reclining in a chair with a joint in their mouth, and they're just kind of like rocking back with some tunes on, and they're just like hit a few keys and see what it does. Hit a few keys and see what it does. Is that basically what vibe coding is?
Yeah.
Yeah. Sounds fun.
So I just ask it to do something. It goes away and does it. And then I'm like, I get really satisfied with myself because I created a great prompt.
Yeah. The smoking cannabis is optional.
Definitely in China, yeah.
Oh yeah, it's basically illegal in most countries now, isn't it? But
Exactly. No, I mean that is vibe coding. Like it feels like cheating. It feels like it's a superpower because you're, especially with some of the faster models now, like you ask them to do something and it goes away and like boshes out like 1,000, 2,000 lines of code in about a minute.
You've identified, like, sorry to take us off track, but you've identified something though that is like fundamental to the use of AI in like in the workplace and actually in like personal context as well, is like moving away from the idea that AI is cheating. Right? Yeah. Because it is still something like people are hiding the fact they're using AI in the workplace. They don't want people to know because, they'll think it's cheating. And I said to you, like, I use AI to help me to create articles, which I still spend a lot of time writing, but I use them in the background. Images I create, I have a workflow where I use like voice creation and all kinds of stuff. And I do feel like a lot of time when I'm doing it, I'm like, I feel like I'm cheating to some degree. I guess with coding is like, if you don't know how to code, you probably don't feel like you're cheating. But for someone like you that does know how to code, so you do feel like you're cheating? You still have that feeling?
No, I'm sorry. I'd say it feels more like a superpower.
Right.
Because like, there's no way I could write code that fast. It writes code insanely fast. And
so the things you're doing with code, because you have done them anyway, it would have just taken you an amount of time that you just don't have.
Some of them,
or is it like it can code better than you and you just wouldn't be able to do this without
a mixture of both. Like some of it I could do. A lot of it I would still need to like look up how to do it or look at the docs or whatever. Like, but that's the same thing that AI is doing. Some of it I don't know how to do, so I'd have to either learn how to do it or figure it out, which is part of your job as a programmer. Like I definitely would be able to figure it out, I think, in most cases. In terms of like how much time it saves, I mean, if I was to give AI a prompt to build a website from scratch with Google login integration and Supabase integration using React and a whole bunch of other technologies, I could probably give it a bit of a monster prompt that would describe all of that. Let's say it's for this kids nutrition website. It could build that. I'm not joking. Like, it could build that in 20 minutes and build a pretty good functional version of that, maybe with some bugs, and then you have to go and tweak it and get the bugs sorted out. But you could probably build a like fairly functional version of something that would take me weeks to build in a single prompt.
In a single prompt?
Probably. Yeah, I think so. That's how good it is now. I mean, especially if there's real world examples out there. Like if you asked AI to build a Twitter clone, it would probably knock that out. Like you could literally give it that prompt and it would just and give it a different name. Call it Matter and make it a Twitter clone. And it wouldn't be perfect. Of course, it wouldn't have all the functionality and features that Twitter has and the app and whatever, but you could probably build a web version of Twitter in one prompt.
All right, let's finish off just to explore a little bit, because again, sort of coming back to the original idea of the podcast and the impact on jobs and kind of, society in general, I guess. Most people listen to this podcast unless you're a coder. I guess you probably think, well, I don't really care if coders all lose their jobs. So, I doubt many people listen to this podcast are coders who are worried about their jobs. But like, let's just talk about like the effect on the industry, like on coders, but also like how coding is going to affect other people. Like, is it going to be that this automated coding, for example, like, I don't know, I guess an obvious one's like graphic design, right? Like graphic design, like why would you pay for someone to design graphics when you can just use code to create that? But let's break it down to two parts. The first bit is like, what is it replacing now? And what is it going to replace, in the next 1 or 2, 3 years that people listen to the podcast need to be worried or aware of?
So I think that AI is already, like, in terms of graphic design, we've given examples even a year ago on the podcast where people have literally been made unemployed by AI because they work in graphic design, and now you can do something that's good enough using an AI image generating software. And like, that's definitely the case. Like, even if you didn't lose your job because of it directly, if you're a freelance graphic designer,
you get less business.
You got less business now because everyone's just
willing to pay you less.
Willing to pay you less, yeah, exactly. Like, and it's not like you don't have a role to play, because there's still some nuance and there's still some things that you can't get AI to do if you've got a really specific idea. But if you're doing some sort of like our logo for our podcast, for example, we generated with AI.
I mean, you look at the one on your T-shirt. We have a new logo now.
Yeah, but they're both generated by AI.
No, I handcrafted them with my own fair hand, Jimmy.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So exactly,
I'll make you a new T-shirt as well.
If you want to launch a podcast, then you probably just go on you want a logo for your podcast, you go on ChatGPT now, and I mean, how many people are doing that? It must be absolutely tons. In terms of like,
well, I mean, you just look at. I'm just thinking of like WeChat, which most people listen to podcasts probably don't access WeChat. I look at WeChat more than other social media because it's the thing I use the most day in, day out. I'm sure this is kind of the same for most, but when I look at articles in my sort of official accounts, well, it's an algorithmic feed. Yeah, it's an algorithmic feed. And I look at the picture that is in the kind of, front page of the article. I would say 90% are AI generated. I think it's that high.
Oh, yeah, totally. So
actually, my own articles, every single image is AI generated. Every single image.
Well, how much of not Twitter, how much of like TikTok is now AI generated images, and Instagram and stuff like that? Like bonkers amounts, I think.
Yeah.
So like that sort of stuff's already happening. I think if you're a developer, like Amazon, the biggest set of cuts that have been announced from ever, potentially, that I've heard of is Amazon have announced that they're making 600,000 cuts recently by, I think it was 2030.
600,000. I mean, that's like, okay, in China it's a village, but like in Europe, the US, that's a
small city or something.
Not a small city. It's
city.
The second biggest city the third biggest city in your country. It's capital cities. It's
big cities. Yeah,
it's an insane amount.
So I think they said by 2033. So it's obviously over a number of years, but a significant chunk of them will be white collar jobs, working and it'll be through AI automation on white collar jobs, which is partly through coding, but a big chunk of it's just through AI that can just deal with queries and inquiries and like moving stuff from one place to another in the virtual world. I'm pretty sure a big chunk of it must be also like automating their factories and sorry, not factories, warehouses, and things like that, which is also a thing now because you've got robots are starting to become a thing. So
what was Meta's announcement around coding?
So like they reckon, this was a while ago, but we talked about it, but like 30% of all their code is written by AI. Which,
okay, sorry, my question was the 30%, because you quoted this earlier, but the 30% is written by AI. Does that mean everyone's doing less work, or does that mean you have 30% less people working for Meta doing coding?
I think it's a bit of both, isn't it? Like
or if it's not, eventually it'll be 30% less, or eventually it'll be
more, yeah, because they're getting everything done by AI. So that's do I think it's going to replace your job specifically? Not necessarily, but if you can learn how to use AI, and if you want to try and understand it better, then I think this is one of those areas where you could have a bit of fun with it. And actually, while we've been chatting, I've built this was using AI Studio,
the magical food adventure, right?
Yeah, so we can have a go at this after the episode, but it's a text adventure based on that concept that we talked about earlier on. So I think kids understanding nutrition is the concept behind it, and it generates images and it generates like a little story for you. And it's pretty cool. Like there's some cool stuff you can do on AI Studio, which they're more gimmicky, I suppose. But once you give it a prompt and it writes code and it builds this stuff for you. So,
but it's coming back to my point is like it's doing this, but then should I look at the code and work out how it did it? No. Does it matter?
No, I don't look at the code when I'm vibe coding. I look at the code if I really have to, because it's made a howling mistake and I can't, and it needs someone to go and look at it. But most of the time, it doesn't even require.
So the point is, I guess, that previously writing code in itself was, you needed to be able to write code, whereas now, actually, all you need to worry about is the output.
Yeah. You just need to. You ask it to write the code, and then you just check to see if it aligns with what you wanted.
Is it like previously I needed to make, I don't know, a toy or a cupboard for myself, and then there came the point where I could get one made for me? Is this the way? Because I'm thinking like we're viewing this as this
What's the analogy?
Life-changing kind of thing that like, oh my God, it can create code and then like it can just do all this stuff. But is it like a historical analogy for this? Is there a historical analogy where like people had to make things for themselves and then maybe food is an example, like you had to get all the ingredients and then suddenly there were ready meals? Is this like the ready meal of
I think it is
content?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah,
you go to a supermarket and it's convenient. It's convenience, right?
Yeah. I guess so. Like it's just So, I mean, as I say, in the future, I think I mentioned it earlier on, but in the future we'll be able to, you'll be able to create an app that works exactly the way you want it to work. That might be, I don't know, that might be something simple like it's just in the color that you want your to-do list to be in, but it might be something more complex where you want a to-do list that also has an alarm clock built into it. I don't know.
So my final challenge for you is on something you just said. is, eventually or at some point soon, it will be able to do all these things. So if it's going to be able to do all those things in a year or 2 years' time, why don't I just wait? Why do I need to bother with any of this stuff now?
Well, you don't.
Should I just wait? I guess it's the argument with all of AI is like it's going to get better, so I just don't. But it feels like with coding is like, are we going to get to a point in a year's time where I can literally just put in a prompt and tell it a few things, and it will literally just be able to do everything I wanted it to do?
Probably.
And if that's the case, should I just wait? Or
well, you can, yeah.
Because I still feel like for me there is something about like, we don't know how large language models work completely. There's to some degree they're a black box, but we do understand how code works. And the reason why large language models are good with code is because code is predictable, right? It is perfectly in line with LLMs because it is text, essentially. It's a language, and it works perfectly with a large language model. That's what large language models do. So I kind of still feel like, for me, like understanding the text and how it works, I think it is still useful.
It'll probably always be useful. Like it's.
Is it? I feel like it is, but I just don't know. Like maybe for someone who cares more than most people about AI, like I'm not a software developer, I'm not an expert, but I care more than most people. Maybe it still does for me, but for most people, does it matter enough to learn to understand code, or should most people listen to this just focus on going away and creating something fun?
I think go away and create something fun, but you'll probably learn something about code along the way. The whole, I mean, I'm going back to earlier on in the episode, but although I am a developer and I do understand a bit of code, I get frustrated with the actual process of writing the code because I just want to see what I've got in my head. I just want to see it happen. In my head, I'll be like, I want to make this app, and all I want to do is get to that outcome. And maybe that's impatience, or maybe it's because the act of writing the code is not actually that interesting.
I've got what I think is a good analogy, actually. For some people, maybe this doesn't work, but if I want to have a great body, right? Do I really want to engage in the process of going to the gym every day and eating the right food at the right time and sleeping at the right time, or do I just want to get the good body? And I think for some people, like the process is fun, right? And there is a thing about like, I've done this. Yeah, exactly. I've earned this body. But for most people,
they just want the good body.
They just want the good body.
Yeah.
And maybe that's the analogy for this, is like, for most people, they just want the product. They don't want to feel like I worked that. I worked hard to create this. Like maybe music's another example. Like, do you want to just be able to play Beethoven's Fifth Symphony, or do you want to go through the whole process of learning it? I'd bet most people just want to be able to play it.
Yeah. Like if I could, I mean, maybe this is a good use for AI. Like if I could read the next Ian M. Banks novel, and Ian Banks passed away and isn't going to write any more novels, I would love for him to write another novel. I would love for Douglas Adams to write another Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, or whatever.
Freddie Mercury to write a new song. Yeah.
But so, like, if I could get that, that would be fantastic. Maybe that's a bit of a stretch right now. But you know, and but yeah, it's exactly like you kind of want the end result. You don't necessarily need to understand all the bits in between, or you don't necessarily want to have to do the graft. I'll be honest, like if anyone fancies having a crack at it, have a go. It's quite interesting. If you're interested in how it all fits together, I think AI can also talk you through that as well. And like as you said, you did a bit of coding for a little while, and it's kind of readable, legible. You can understand it. It's not actually as big a anathema. It's not as big a black box as you think it's going to be.
Well, just something I'd forgot to say on this episode is like going back to like Claude. So if you create one thing I kind of equally like it and don't like it, because I think I like it, but I think it's like maybe sort of unnecessary. But actually for people listening to this episode, it is quite useful. Is on Claude, ask or any AI, but I know Claude does this, is say like, I want to create a visual diagram that shows me how the Silk Road between 200 and 400 BC developed, right? And when it creates it, on the right hand side, you'll see the code forming. And I'm not saying for everyone like you want to read all that code and try and understand it, but when you see that code forming, like even as a beginner, you can kind of see certain, like you can understand, oh, okay, right. So that's what it looks like. It uses those brackets. It uses it uses that key seems to be really important. Oh, I didn't realize that the understand key is so important. I wonder what that does. Like even doing that gives you an insight into how the code works, because fundamentally it is a language, right? That's the thing, is like, it's no different in a way to being like, I can't understand Spanish. And I think back to like, if my dad's listened to this episode, he'll kind of like this anecdote. When I was really young, so I'm talking like 7, 8, 9, we used to get books from the library on the ZX Spectrum computer. Right? We used to get books and they would give you a set of code, 10, like cyan, 4, like these are the colors because the Spectrum had 12 colors, whatever. And you type a load of code, and I'd sit there in my school holidays. Maybe I was a bit older than 9, I don't know, maybe 10, 11. But I'd write, no, I would have been, yeah, it's about right, 9, 10. And I'd write all this code. And then there'd be a 50-50 chance whether when you pressed enter at the end of it, it either created the product it was supposed to, or it just crashed. And then you'd record it on a cassette. And I think about like the process of writing that. And it's that question again about like, was the process the thing that was amazing, or was it the thing at the end that was amazing? I think it's kind of a mixture of both.
Yeah.
And I think it depends what it is. Like there is definitely something that we shouldn't we shouldn't forget about the process of creating stuff. So like with music, for example, like if you can just play something without any effort, it's meaningless. And, there's a lot of things like that. Learning a language, maybe learning a language actually is the opposite. Maybe learning a language is like the process is meaningless. You just want to learn the language. Being able to cook a meal, like the feeling of I've spent 4 hours in the kitchen, I've created this masterpiece, is amazing. But there are also times that you just want to have a nice meal.
Yeah. Like
so,
now.
So it's not either or. It's like sometimes maybe you want to, like the coding itself and the process and knowing you've created this thing is important. But other times it's like, I want this thing that can do this for me. Like, why would I want to spend any more time than I have to on it? Yeah. And that's where I think this is maybe really useful for people, is like, you just want to create this thing. It's not about the feeling of like, I've earned this. It's just about, I just want this thing. And now you're in a world in which you can, that I've imagined, exactly, in my imagination. And I could never create it before. And now I can make this thing real.
Yeah. I think that's the coolest thing about it.
And on that note,